I don't know how to express my emotions. In fact, I don't think I really know how to feel. This is something that a woman said to me recently. And she's not the first. So today we're going to take a look at that. How do you feel? Welcome to this episode of The Unburdened Woman. If you're new here, I'm Niamh. I'm a women's confidence coach. I help women see their own truth. I help women see their own wisdom. I help women see where anxiety and stress is ruling their life, how their people-pleasing is ruling their life. And I help them to let that all go and to seek the life that they really want to live. And one of the ways we do that is by learning to feel again, by learning to recognize and see our own emotions, by not suppressing them, but not letting them rule us either. Now, many women, and particularly women in middle age, were brought up with parents who didn't express emotions. And I live in England, and there's this thing called the stiff British upper lip, where, you say you're fine, everything's fine, and you don't speak about your feelings. You don't say if you're not feeling well or if there's something going on emotionally. You suppress it. So not only do we have the societal suppression of emotions, it runs deeper than that. It runs in families. So a number of women I've spoken to as well have also told me that not only were they not allowed to show their emotions in their families, and their parents didn't show emotions, their parents weren't affectionate, but on the very rare occasion there was a display of emotion. It was a display of explosive anger, and that felt really unsafe. They felt threatened. They felt at their very core, as children do, that they caused it, that they were at the root of that. So what do you learn to do when that happens? You learn to hide. You learn to tiptoe around. You learn to suppress your own emotions and to appease. You learn to be constantly on guard. Because there is no safety for you in a place where there is explosive anger, when you never know when it's coming. So you learn to do everything you possibly can to avoid triggering that anger. And that's not your fault. Your system taught you that, your subconscious, to keep you safe. Because as you were a child, all you knew was that anger made you feel unsafe. So you learnt all these patterns to keep you safe. Because you weren't encouraged to express your emotions, to feel your emotions, to say, I feel sad, and to allow yourself to feel sad. Or something has upset me, and to talk about what has upset you and how it can be resolved. You weren't taught that. You were taught to suppress those emotions, to not speak about them, to not let them out. And you've gone through life thinking that's how you're supposed to live. And maybe some very, very lucky people have actually married somebody or met a friend or something, they have someone who's taught them how to express their emotions, who will sit and listen to them and really deeply hear them. But for a lot of us, we're still working through that. We're still working on that ledge. We're scared a lot of the time to express what we truly feel. Because one, we don't want to trigger that explosive anger in somebody else. And two, our feelings have been invalidated for so long that we kind of feel they might not be worthy. Or who am I to feel like this? How many of you were told to stop crying before I give you something to really cry about? That was one of my mother's favourite. So for whatever reason we were crying, it was never good enough. It was never a real reason. But if we didn't stop, she was probably going to slap us, which would really give us a reason to cry. Physical hurt. Yes, physical hurt you were allowed to feel. Physical pain. But emotions? No. So I've had women come to me and say, how do I actually feel? Because they don't know how to feel. They don't know how to express. It's not just the expression of emotions. They've spent so long squashing those emotions down. And how do we squash emotions down? Well, we distract ourselves with busyness, with doing things for other people. So constantly on the go, forever adding to your to-do list, because that means you don't have time to stop, to think, to feel. We also use food, alcohol, cigarettes, exercise, anything basically we can get the hands on as well to stop ourselves feeling. So you feel some sort of sensation bubbling up and you know you don't want to deal with this because it's not something you've ever dealt with before. So you reach for the chocolate or the crisps or the glass of wine to kind of numb yourself. And a lot of the stress and the anxiety we feel, and the depression, the low moods we can sometimes feel, a lot of that comes from the fact that our bodies, our hearts, our souls are crying out for us to just feel those emotions, to just let them out, to let them breathe, to let them be free. Because when we suppress our emotions, they don't have anywhere to go. So they stay in the body. And they manifest sometimes as physical pain. They manifest as anxiety, anxious thinking, overthinking, feeling overwhelmed, low mood. And I know this because I've been there. I've been through the whole cycle. I've been through the sitting on the sofa with a family-sized bar of chocolate in the evenings, knowing what I really needed was a good cry, but too scared to allow myself to cry because I couldn't let anybody see that I was feeling this way. I didn't even want to acknowledge to myself half the time the way I felt, which is probably why it took me years longer to heal than it actually should have done. And the only way to feel our emotions is to actually allow ourselves to feel them, to sit with them, to allow what's coming up to come up. But we need to feel safe to do that. We need to be in an environment that feels safe for us to do that. So for some of you, that could be in a therapist's office. For some of you, it could be with a coach. For some of you, you might just want a quiet space at home with your favourite teddy bear, a box of chocolate, or not chocolates, a box of tissues, your journal. And for me, that's where it started, was in my journal. That's where I was first able to really get a handle on those emotions. Actually, it started on my yoga mat when the emotions started to bubble up. More as tears. I spent months crying on my yoga mat. I have written a post about that. You can go and read that. I spent months crying on my yoga mat, just letting those emotions flow, the tears flow. I didn't get to the bottom of those tears until I really started using my journal properly. And I could see the patterns and I could feel the thoughts. And when I stopped all the doing, all the busyness, when I took a few moments just to sit and ask myself, how am I really feeling today? And letting that bubble up, not trying to squash it down, just acknowledging it, just naming it, because sometimes that's all we need to do. We need to acknowledge, I feel sad today, or I'm upset today, or I'm angry today. I feel a little bit desperate today. Today I feel stressed. This morning I feel a little bit anxious. And then just sitting with that feeling. We don't need to do anything with it. Most feelings pass in about 90 seconds if we let them. Sometimes we don't even need to name the feeling or acknowledge. We just need to acknowledge it. We just need to allow it to be there and to pass. Sometimes we haven't quite got a name for how we feel because it's a mixture of various different things, and that's okay. But we need to sit with the feelings, and that's why I say at first you're going to need somewhere safe to do that, because if you've never done it, it's not going to feel safe. So if you can create a nice safe space for you. When I first started this work, I created a nest on my bed, basically. I had my box of tissues, I had my journal, I had my favourite teddy bear. Yes, I'm a grown woman, I still have a favourite teddy bear. Don't judge. And I would just sit and ask myself that question, how am I feeling today? And I would allow whatever feelings were coming up to come up. Sometimes I would need a good cry. Sometimes I would just need to hug my teddy bear. Sometimes I needed to rock back and forth or move through it. And I just accepted whatever I needed to do in that moment. But as I learned to actually feel the feelings in my body, so to feel the sensations, because some feelings would make me feel tight-chested, some would make my stomach feel weird or sinking, some would make me actually feel like I needed to rush off to the loo. And those physical sensations were quite intense at first. But the more I got used to feeling my feelings, to acknowledging them, to naming them, to letting them pass, those physical sensations eased. And I was able to express in writing, first of all, how I was feeling. So in my journal, I could write a paragraph about how I was feeling, and maybe sometimes even the why I was feeling this way. And the why is sometimes quite important, because that's how we fix a lot of the feelings. So if I was upset with somebody else, and I could feel that upset, I could allow myself to feel that upset, to feel the sensations it caused in my body, to work out what and why I was upset. And then sometimes I wouldn't be able to address it with the person, and that was fine, but I could have that conversation in my journal, the conversation I would like to have had. And that brought some relief as well. And I could allow myself to actually feel that relief, to sigh, to breathe, to let it out. So I can't really tell you how you feel or how you can go about feeling your feelings, except that you just have to give yourself permission to do it. You have to get quiet. You have to stop grabbing for the chocolate, the wine, the cigarettes, the busyness. And you have to allow yourself the time and really give yourself the permission to allow those feelings to come up. And to treat yourself with the utmost kindness and compassion when they do. To not berate yourself for the feeling of anger, or for needing to cry, or feeling upset about something that you shouldn't be upset about because society tells you you shouldn't. Because in all of this, you are the only one who counts. You matter far more than you know, and your feelings matter. And you deserve to feel all of your feelings, to express all of your emotions. And your feelings are there for a reason. They're messengers. They're telling you something about yourself and your life. And you really do need to learn to listen to them. So if this has helped you in any way, I would love you to share. Or if you have any other questions, or you would like to have a private conversation with me about this, please do reach out. Thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next one.